Hello everyone, welcome back to JCfinger. I've had a couple of requests to build an Egyptian mansion for a while, and I didn't because we don't have that many Egyptian themed items in the game. So I thought, why not build a pyramid and then stuff any Egyptian pieces into it? And that would be close enough to an Egyptian themed home. Now I decided to build this pyramid on this plot, which is the French chateau plot, because of the almost white sand that it has, and that reminds me of the desert. And of course I decided to light up the building so that at nighttime it looks just as nice. And then I covered all the step balconies with brown shag rugs. I think that's what they're called, because you only have that special balcony and paving from the chateau property on the second floor. These are the only statues in the game, and I decided to use them because in Egypt you have a lot of statues, and these ones here, which are the fire monkey statues, have a flame. It looks like an eternal flame, you know? I would have loved to have the pharaohs of Egypt statues, or who knows, maybe we'll have an Egyptian update. But I thought that these statues were great and they hold a flame, which is quite nice. So I have a river, so to say, running underneath that large bridge that goes from the building to the front part of this pyramid. I'm going to get used to calling it a pyramid because it's in the desert, and it's quite nice to know that there are some running waters here and there, a bit like an oasis in some way. And I was also inspired by a picture that I'd seen of an Egyptian mansion that had a pool sort of in front before it, and it was super grand. I was going to put the picture up here, but it has some copyrights to it. Now, I have this beautiful part at the back here, and do remember that this is in the desert, so it's a hot territory. The man you see sitting here is called Uriah the Hittite. He lived here with his wife, Bathsheba, and they would come out here quite often and enjoy the warm desert breeze. But he is no longer living, and I'll tell you a little bit of a story about that. He's sort of like a ghost that lingers around the pyramids, but not to worry, you'll understand why. So while building this pyramid, I obviously do realize that Egyptians don't actually live inside of pyramids. It's supposed to be home to the most sacred tombs of the great pharaohs and probably hidden treasure, along with scary cursed mummies, of course. But in this case, it has to be a property that has Sims living in it, not just a structure for external viewing. I realize I said earlier that these are the only statues in the game. That's not quite accurate. This lion statue here is perfect for this structure because of the lion structures you see around pyramids in the desert, and the other structures like the Buddha and so on are not appropriate for an Egyptian build. This is the beautiful Bathsheba, who was once wife to Uriah the Hittite, who is now deceased. She's now the wife of King David. You might remember David from the long ancient story in the Bible, who slew Goliath. She's now his wife, and I'll tell you how they came to be a couple. Now, King David, of course, has many wives, lots of concubines, and sometimes you think, how many women does a man need? That's a question for them to answer. Now, when kings went to war, it is written that King David stayed behind and let his men go off and fight. And during that period, he thought, I'll take a rest. So he put on his protective armor so that no stray arrow would get to him and take his life. So while he went to and fro on his rooftop, he didn't realize that his armor was no match for the very sharp arrow that pierced his heart. Why? Because while he was up there, he spotted a woman from his very high tower taking a bath on her rooftop. Her name turned out to be Bathsheba. It was the end of her monthly cycle where the ladies had to have a ceremonial bath. She would take a dip in a tub with all kinds of petals and oils. Her handmaidens would then help her with being cleansed inside and out. The entire time King David was completely besotted by her, and he watched on as she completed the entire ritual, and by the end of it all, he was completely taken in by her and could not get her out of his mind. Perhaps this is one of the reasons being idle isn't a good idea. You must remember that she is the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Who is Uriah the Hittite? Uriah is one of the soldiers who work in King David's army. King David immediately got down from his tower and spoke to the palace guard and inquired about the woman, and he was told that Bathsheba was the wife of his loyal servant Uriah the Hittite. Regardless, he sent the palace guards to bring her to him, while Uriah was at the war front fighting to preserve the king's honor. She was dazzling. Bathsheba attended the king's presence, and he wined with her, and he dined with her, and he spoke with her late into the hours of the night. And you must remember that in those days, if the king sent for you, you had to attend his presence. You didn't really have a choice. The alternative was probably off with your head. King David seduced her, or shall I say seduced himself. And it wasn't long before he had taken her into his chamber and had his way with her. This is how King David rewarded his very loyal soldier who was in his employ, taking his wife, making her his own, while keeping him out there working hard to preserve his own honor and his kingdom. Such betrayal, such travesty. Indeed, such greed, for he already had a vast number of wives. Before long, Uriah the Hittite's wife Bathsheba was found to be with child, and she sent a message to King David about it. He immediately sent for Uriah and tried to come up with a plan where he would leave the war front, go home, be with his wife, and somehow she would pass the child off as his own. But Uriah was way too loyal and insisted, "No way, sire. I must fight with the rest of the men." And so that plan didn't work. So King David sent his special soldiers along with him to the war front. He had given them specific instructions and said, "Put Uriah in the part of the war where it's most hottest. Leave him there. And in doing so, he will be left to fend for himself." And he was killed because he had no backup. Uriah died, and King David made Bathsheba his wife, who then had a child. But not so fast. He might be the most powerful man in the world, but it doesn't mean that the most powerful men don't answer to a much higher power. The God of heaven and earth sent Nathan the prophet to King David to reprimand him for what he had done and cursed his entire family. However, because King David was sorry and repentant, his life was spared, but not that of the child that was born to him by Bathsheba through the evil process. The child grew ill, and before long, his life was taken. As for Bathsheba, what can I say? She became just another one of his many wives. Now let's get back to the tour. In getting into this house, you go underneath this beautiful bridge and into those brown doors, which of course on the reverse is white. You have a long corridor from end to end with a couple of cacti in the entrance. It is the desert, remember? And then there's lots of curtains everywhere, which is something I noticed in some of the bills that I researched for Egyptian homes. Because it's in the desert, there is a lot of curtains to cover for shade. This is the massive living room that is a double height room. So yes, I've caved again and I've gone for this double height look because it's excellent. And I think that the high roof and the stone floors would create a very cooling effect for a property that's in the desert. There's some decorative plant arrangements here on that part of the balcony, so I wanted just that little balcony above those curtains down below. And this is the Arabic windows. You'd find them in your collection. I don't think you get them from an event or anything like that. I thought they worked beautifully in here. And the wallpaper is sort of sandy. So this is the theme that you're going to see going throughout this home. And then there are a couple of these lovely French chateau round tables that are brown. And there's lots and lots of, beautiful decorative items all over the place, which I think is what I was able to pick up from the research that I did. These set of doors go into the dining room, and we'll get in there shortly. And I think that these seats are perfect because there's lots of pillows scattered around. In these cultures, sometimes they actually sit on the floor and on rugs and things like that. But even in the modern day that we're in, they do have chairs. Of course they do, but pillows are a big thing. You know, lots of cushions. Now you come out this way, and this is the entrance to the grand staircase, and over on the right we have the kitchen. It was quite nice to be able to have lots of food clutter, you know. And in these cultures, they're really big on lots of rich and delicious food, and you know, most of their social time spent together is around lots of meals. And then there's the door that leads out from the kitchen on the side there, and we have a leopard print couch at the back, which I think is in keeping with the theme in some way. Now do remember that most of the items in the game are not Egyptian, but still we can go for things that look traditional in that way. Now in order to go to the dining room, you come back out through this massive living room and turn right. And it's a large dining room, and I decided that I wanted some hanging lights that looked like they were in a straight line, you know, like a string of lights. And so I thought that these roof bronze polyhedron lights that came with the snow chalet, I think it was a good idea. There's a section back here where food would be displayed, and I have a couple of menorahs. There was an issue with the Persian house that I built a while ago where individuals were saying, well, you know, you wouldn't find a menorah in a Persian home, and some people said, no, of course you can, there are Persian Jews or Jewish Persians, or this is not what I'm here to do. I just wanted to build something that looked close enough and traditional enough to what an Egyptian home might look like. I do know that they have a lot of candelabras, you know, during those times, because they didn't really have electricity, right? So you would find that I've placed, for instance, in this bathroom here, there's a French candelabra on the sink there, and you know, things that have candles in them. Anything that's going to have candles in them, I would use in the build. So do bear with me. It's the best we can do with what we have in the game. This is the staircase that leads up to the balcony where Bathsheba and Uriah would spend, you know, hours in the day together when he was ever back from war. But of course you know now that he will never be around again, except as a ghost, or you know, lurking around the property in that way, because of the manner in which he died. I think that was quite vicious and very unfair and very sad. But here is an overview of the ground floor of this Egyptian pyramid. I think it's lovely, it's very clean, it's very, you know, clean cut in a way, and the idea of the tons of pillows in that living room just really make this work for me anyway. This is the staircase that goes up to the rest of the pyramid, and so I'm going to get Bathsheba to take us upstairs. Now, I also find in some of the builds that I saw online, the ancient builds anyway, they have spaces in the home that are not clearly defined, where you can just sit around. Well, of course, in most of our modern homes, you'd come upstairs to a landing, and it could be a living room, and this would be their version of a living room in some way. But it's very rich, and I've put this wedding light hanging over here that look like fairy lights in some way, and then I have this, you know, lots of gold here and there, but I placed 2 gold mirrors together because I wanted it to be a double mirror. I think that we have, for instance, like this frame above that, you know, French seat, it's a double, right? So Sims FreePlay should give us double mirrors. This is a guest room. It could be a room for a daughter, or you could change the bed and make it a room for a son and just change up the color theme, but it's soft in here. And I have a nice bathroom, so it's an ensuite and is the only bedroom on this floor in the pyramid, along with the, you know, casual relaxing seating area that precedes its entrance. The overview from this angle is quite nice. I love that you can see how the living room looks from a height above the norm, and again the entire space is covered in sandy walls, and that's just something that was really appealing to me during the course of this build. The staircase goes upstairs to the next level, and there's a little door in the corner, or an archway on the corner here that leads out onto the bridge that you can then follows through on to the front of the pyramid. So this section is a bit like the gates, and this is the Lovelock fountain from the French chateau. I thought the water fountains would be a nice contrast for the hot sand. So let's get back into the build. So we're going to take the staircase up to the next level. And again, it leads through to another landing, which is a casual seating area. So you can come in here, sit down, lounge around. There's a staircase to the right that carries on to the next level of the pyramid. But there's a nice section here with a mirror and some Moroccan lamps. I have a Moroccan lamp in my home, and it's not an Egyptian home, okay? I also have a little pyramid that my sister gave me when she went to Egypt on holiday. This is a master bedroom. Candelabras to the right and left of this massive bed, okay? So the pair of the beds make up one bed, in my mind anyway. To the right of this massive bedroom is the closet space for Bathsheba. So this is all hers, it's not shared, and this is her bathroom round the back, and we have the toilet unit in the corner there. Now it's the same idea that I had in my island villa, where the master bedroom has two separate closet spaces and bathrooms for the occupants of that master bedroom. There's a TV in here for them, and it's backing this unit out here. Now you have to remember that I have no idea how they went to the loo back then in those days. Well, I do have an idea, but there is no physical way I could replicate that in this house. So it's crazy. Okay, let me get it together. Let's get back onto the tour. But yes, we could argue that they didn't have toilet units, right? So let's just leave it there. Now this staircase goes up to the next floor, and what we have is another bedroom, and we'll see that in a second, but we have a massage room on the side here. Egyptians back then had a lot of, physical therapy, They would have masseurs, okay? And that would be where she would go in and have her back rubbed by her handmaidens, and then we have a library. I didn't want to put a study in here and put a computer in. That would be wrong, okay? So they have a study. They do have a library. They sit around on these ottomans, and they have a crystal ball. I'm assuming that they would study and try to see into the future with a crystal ball. Now this is the next room on this floor, and it's blue themed. The other one was a bit pinky and soft. This is dark and blue, and it has its own ensuite in the corner here. There is a set of dressers in the corner behind her, and I like that when you click on it and get her to craft a new craze, the door opens up and then she can access the clothing. I think that's quite nice. Now this tub you see in here is from the French Chateau collection as well. I thought it was nice. I like that it's dark and orange, and I have this staircase that goes upstairs, but also there is a separate unit for the restroom toilet in the corner there. Now this staircase takes us up to the rooftop where Bathsheba was taking her bath the morning that King David saw her, and the rest is history. So I thought in this pyramid, instead of closing it off, that I would make this space quite nice, and it's almost feeling like it's a Greek themed top, right? But I like that it's outside, and the top of this bathroom area has the sky for a rooftop. I think that's fantastic. And this was a special place for her where she would get cleaned up and just really relax and hang out with her handmaidens. And that completes the tour for this massive, massive pyramid. It was fun to build. It was very hard to do. I don't know that I will do a live build for this. However, if the requests come in thick and fast, then I am compelled to do a live build for it. It was very hard to do, and I can tell you now that I have no idea how to reconstruct this. And what I do when it comes to live builds is I have my iPad open with the actual structure, and then I delete it on my iPhone, and then I follow one from there and copy. I practice for about 2 or 3 times, and then when I've got the hang of it, I then go for it from start to finish, and that's what you see as a live build uploaded on the channel. That being said, you can imagine how hard this would be. So if you want it, I would have to see the comments and the tweets to be sure that it will be worth the hard work that I would have to put into replicating this. But then again, there are some excellent builders out there who at a glance would have this done and put up on the Facebook page, and that's amazing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.